Well, Dave, it's been wonderful to get to know you over the last few days in terms of getting ready for our time together today. And it's a real pleasure to bring us to this opportunity to learn more about you. I see a lot of your amazing work projected, of course, but you're the gentleman behind the camera most of the time. And so now it's wonderful to have you in front of the camera for others to learn more about you. So I wondered if you'd like to start by sharing a little bit more of your story.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I definitely feel more comfortable behind the camera, but it's great to have this opportunity to just say a little bit more about me. I grew up in a farming family, with a Christian family, and that was something I really enjoyed, working on the farm a lot at weekends and holidays, and I went on to study agriculture following that. But during my early 20s, I felt God was leading me towards wanting to go into overseas mission. While I'd been studying agriculture, I'd travelled to Australia and to America for work, and got a bit of a bug for travelling, and I thought maybe overseas mission is something I could do. Most mission societies want you to have some theological qualifications, so I went to Bible college in London and studied and got a degree in theology. But during that time, God had sort of twisted things a little bit more, and I'd actually started to work a little bit with technology, and I'd been using cameras and doing video editing as part of a placement that I'd done at the college, and working at New Wine and other sort of festivals like that as well, getting really good experience. And so I wondered about combining those two things and doing some kind of Christian video work, and whether that was the way God was leading me. And in my final dissertation at college, it was about communicating the gospel through video and how effective that can be. And I felt really at that time that God was calling me to that, and that was something that He wanted me to get involved with, was to actually facilitate the communication of His message through video and visual media generally. And then all sorts of things started to come together. A lot of people in the church will know Dennis Pethers, who was leading Viz-A-Viz Ministries at that time. And I met him at Spring Harvest, not knowing who he was. I was sharing a chalet with him. He had just started a video production unit at their base here in Essex, and asked me if I wanted to come and work with him as alongside someone who had a lot more experience and be a bit of an apprentice. And so this seemed really great to me. I moved to Essex. This was in the late 90s. And ended up coming to this church because my cousin Mike Burgess and his wife Fia were members here, and I was lodging with them to start with when I first moved here. And I really enjoyed doing what I was doing. It was completely different being inside working on a computer rather than being outside, milking cows and all the other things I'd done up to that point in my life. But I really enjoyed being able to facilitate the message, the Christian message being communicated through various creative means in that way. So that really kind of set me on a path that I'm still really on today.
So tell us a little more about how you combined the technology with your desire to share the gospel. I think there are a couple of other things that you're involved in how you do this.
Yeah, so after I'd spent some years with Viz-A-Viz Ministries, I then worked in the corporate world for a little while and got some really good experience of working at conferences all around the world, doing things on a level which I hadn't experienced before because of the amount of money there is in the corporate world. You've kind of, you can do things in a very different way, and so it was a really good experience for me. But I ultimately knew I wanted to get back to working with communicating the Christian message. And Carl Beach, who was the senior minister here at the time, moved on to work for an organisation called Christian Vision for Men. And very shortly after he moved, he asked me if I would like to come and work with him to set up a video production facility and to use social media and other, in order to communicate the message of Jesus to the men that they were reaching out to. And so that fitted perfectly with me. I really wanted to get back into that. And so about 12 or 13 years ago now, I started working for CVM. I still work for them now. But a couple of years ago, I needed to go part-time with them to help with their financial situation. And so again, God led me to exactly the right time. I had a conversation with Dennis Pethers here at the church after the church one morning after a cup of coffee. And he's now leading an organisation called The Rooftop. He needed someone to help with video and social media, and so it fitted really well with me. So I'm now working for both CVM and The Rooftop, sort of half and half in my week. And that brings extra challenges when you've got two jobs to try and juggle with, and then that was complicated further when we entered lockdown earlier last year, when I volunteered to help with the videos for church. And so as well as working Monday to Friday with other things, I'm now spending my weekends producing videos for the church, for our online church content, which has obviously gone on for much longer than we imagined. But it's been a really great opportunity to work with the ministry team and to be able to put out 3 or 4 videos every week for the young people, for the children, for the adults, for prayer, and film with the worship teams as well. And it's been a great experience.
And I would love to appreciate you for that, because you've brought our ministers into our homes throughout this pandemic. We've benefited from your exceptional skills and gifts for enabling so many of us to enjoy the sermons on a weekly basis.
Thank you.
So from what you said there, Dave, it's not always been easy, I imagine, or as you shared, when perhaps coming out of the corporate role, being asked to make a shift in terms of that not being perhaps what you wanted in terms of fulfilling your heart around communicating more of the gospel. So how did you know that God was calling you and creating these opportunities?
I became a Christian when I was 6, and I've always held strong with my faith, and I've always known that God was there for me and that he would reveal a way to me. And it doesn't always come quite as quickly and as clearly as we would like. But as I said before, looking back on things, you can see God's leading and guiding through things. And I just, I quite often have to sort of go back to where the last time I knew God spoke clearly to me. And I often remember that when I was finishing my theology degree, and this message about being clear about communicating the gospel through video. And I think until I get something new from God, that's what I'm sticking with. That's what I feel he's called me to do. And so while I can still work out how to operate cameras and edit on computers, I'm going to carry on doing that.
Wonderful.
Until something new comes along.
And one other thing that we are coming, I hope, to the end of this kind of pandemic that we've been through over the last 18 months, 2 years coming up. And throughout that time, you've been juggling these 3 roles now as well, helping the church as a volunteer as well, and a dad, and a husband. So what's enabled you to continue to offer and to be who you choose to be, who you want to be, giving so much of yourself, enabling others to be their best selves?
It's not been easy, and there have been times, certainly in the early part of lockdown, when everything was all up in the air for everybody, really. We've had a lot of support as a family from friends in the church, and that's been really good. There are times in the past where I've had to go away for work, and people have been really supportive to Faye and the children. And I just feel that God has blessed us with a really good support network, mainly through the church, but also through family. In the autumn last year, my dad died quite suddenly when he was in his late 80s and had a good life, but he just suddenly died one night, and I ended up going down to stay with my mum Monday to Friday for a few weeks, and to help her to go through things. And everybody rallied round and was really helpful. They were supplying meals to the rest of the family that were here, and other people volunteered to help out with some of the filming and editing to fill the gap while I was doing that. And so that was really good to know that we weren't on our own. We had other people around us. And although it's been busy and there's lots of things that we've missed out on because of how busy I've been, we've still had good times together as a family, and I try and be there as much as I can at meal times and at bedtime for the children, and getting there with a balance. My wife would tell me I haven't got it right, but it's better than it was.
Oh, that's wonderful. And a blessing to be able to enjoy our work so much.
Yes.
That we need to be reminded when to take a break. So for our listeners today, what would be a message that you would like to share or to leave with them as you've kindly shared your story?
I think for me, something I've really appreciated throughout my life is to know that God has our best interests at heart. He knows what is best for us, what He wants us to do, and it's not always written out very clearly for us, but I do believe that God will lead us and guide us at the right time, in the right places, and sometimes we need to be a little bit patient. So I think it's just a case of really asking God what it is that you should be doing, whether it's carrying on with what you are doing or whether there's something else out there, and just trusting Him that He will open up the opportunities for something new if that's the right thing. And if it's just understanding that God will be there for you, even if you don't notice it until afterwards. I think that's the thing that I've noticed a lot in my life. It's very rarely evident at that moment, but afterwards you can always see that things happen for a reason, and God has your best interests at heart, and we just have to be faithful and trust Him.
Thank you. And I so appreciate, what I would love to is, as we complete this conversation, is an appreciation of you, Dave, in the way that you create opportunities. What I think about and witness in you is you create opportunities for people to be their best. And a word that I think I'd shared with you before was a real enabler. For me, you enable people to shine through the camera and off the camera. And today it's been a real pleasure to be able to shine the light on you and to learn more about your story and sense of hope as well through the faith, deep faith that you've had and continue to have throughout these times. Thank you.
Thank you very much.